Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You are tuned in to the Ramadan FM special here on EAVA FM. My name's Sharmeen, and this is the lifestyle show that you're joining with me today. I'm the host for today's show, and today's lifestyle show is going to be talking about safeguarding our planet. And you might be thinking, well, why would you want to talk about safeguarding our planet? It's Ramadan. What's planet got to do with anything? So I'm going to read out the contact information, and I'd love to get some participation on today's show. I realize that people are very tired, exhausted, and the last thing they want to do is probably participate with the show, but I'm hoping that you will. So I'm going to read out some contact information so you can get involved. Remember that we are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, on the website, which is www.ramadan.fm. I will get this right eventually. It's just a vestige of working at another Ramadan radio station, I'm afraid, which is a very, very similar domain name. You can get in touch with us today on 0116 212 9324. That's 0116 212 9324. You can text in to the studio. The studio line is 07 450 925 084. 07 450 925 084, or drop us an email on info@ramadan.fm. Now, giving out this contact information because really I would love for everybody to get a bit involved on the show. I love hearing about other people's ideas and other things other people are doing to safeguard the planet. And I always find, someone's got a brilliant idea that it might be really, oh yeah, that's common sense. Why didn't I think of that? But the simple fact is sometimes we don't think of everything. So it's always good to share best practice or things that work for you as a family, work for you as an individual, work for your company even, because part of what I'm going to be talking about today is how businesses can be helping to safeguard our planet. And you might be thinking, well, firstly, what's this got to do with lifestyle? Definition of lifestyle. You can look it up in the dictionary if you like. But lifestyle is about how we live our life. And we know, and you've heard it probably many, many times before, but Islam is a deen. It's a complete way of life. So how we live our day-to-day, everything should be governed by Islam, by the Quran and by the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why safeguarding our planet? Why is it that I want to talk about this today? I want to talk about this because this planet that we live on, this planet that we share, this planet that we enjoy, this is one of the greatest assets that we will pass on to the next generation. It is one of the greatest assets that we will pass on to the next generation, along with our deen, along with the Quran, along with many things. But it's their inheritance. And we often talk about our children. Being an amana and an entrustment to us, and how we raise them. We want to raise them in line with the Quran and Sunnah. And we consider everything when it comes out to our children, their health, education, their future prospects, will they become a doctor, an alim, and so forth. And I would like to ask you this question, put this question out to you. Are we really considering their future when we continue to use these planet's resources without a second thought? I'd just like to welcome people who've joined us on Facebook. Samia's Tailors has joined. Thank you for joining the show, Samia's Tailors. There is an option on Facebook if you are watching through Facebook to do a Facebook share. Now, I did mention this yesterday. It might seem like, oh, why would I want to share this? One of the best ways that you can earn reward very quickly, very easily, is passing on opportunities for reward. By this, I mean, if you pass on this, shared a show that you were watching on Facebook with your Facebook friends, it's a very quick, takes seconds to do. But somebody out there might be listening or tuning in and decided to then watch the program and learn something from it. It benefited them, or it gave them companionship through the month of Ramadan. Perhaps they're lonely. There could be many, many benefits to this, and you would get a share of that reward. So don't take it lightly. I mean, it sounds like a thing, but a very small thing. Oh, really? Is it worth it? Ramadan is a month which will come and go before we know it. And every single deed, as I was mentioning yesterday, you could have tenfold or 700 times more reward for that deed. So Facebook share, go ahead. Do it now if you're listening online. Oh, well, thank you, Inamal Khan, who's just joined us. Thank you for the kind comments on Facebook. Right, so getting back to the topic at hand, safeguarding our planet. Are we doing enough to safeguard our planet? And I'm going to come back to there's a hadith of Rasulullah, and we've heard this hadith many, many times, I'm sure. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what was intended. Whoever migrates with the intention of Allah and His Messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. Whoever migrates for worldly gain or to marry a woman, then his migration will be for the sake of whatever he migrated for. And this is related by Bukhari and Muslim. It's one of the 14 Nawawi's hadith compilation. I'm sure you've come across this many, many times. Nashmi Muhammad, Jazakallah for joining us on Facebook. Now, intention. Why am I talking about intention? I was actually reminded about this by khutbah I listened to yesterday. Khutbah was forwarded on to me, and it was about the month of Ramadan and what we intend during Ramadan and having the right intentions for Ramadan. And it was a beautiful khutbah. And in this khutbah, it talked about all the different intentions you can make. So obviously the intention to fast is there, the intention to go for Taraweeh. And remember, every intention is rewarded. And one of the other ones was the intention to give charity on the first day of Ramadan. So I'm going to give charity on the first day of Ramadan. But there was one right at the end, and the Imam had forgotten, and he went back to it. And he said, one of the other intentions, and I forgot to mention this earlier, because one of the other intentions is to make intention to be happy in the month of Ramadan. And it's struck me, happy. And you can just imagine the congregation sitting there listening to happy month of Ramadan. Why would we make the intention for happy for the month of Ramadan? And actually he went on to explain that actually we should be happy that we got the blessing of Ramadan. We got the opportunity to have Ramadan. And so he said, make the intention to be happy. But we can make intention for many good things, and everything that we intend. Remember, intention is rewarded, even if we didn't get round to it. So I want to ask the listeners out there to join me in making an intention to do what we can to safeguard our planet. Because even if we were insufficient or deficient in the way that we approach this, if at least we can make the intention, then we're one step closer. And inshallah, we will be rewarded, particularly during this month of Ramadan. And not just ourselves. For those of us who are parents, for those of us who perhaps work in the community or have opportunity to share this notion, this idea of making that intention for safeguarding our planet. If you've got kids, if you're a parent like myself, make sure that your children understand this. To make this intention during the month of Ramadan, that they're going to do a bit more to safeguard the planet. Because after all, it is going to be their inheritance. The way in which we leave this planet for them, that's going to be their inheritance. So firstly, about intention, and really stopping to think about what we are doing or how we're looking after the planet that's been entrusted to us. As I said before, when we think about our children, we know that our children are an amana, an entrustment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. But so too is this planet. When we talk about, we hear the word, and many of us as parents would love for our children to be hufad. I would love for our children to be guardians, protectors of the Quran, which is literally what it means. Not just people who've memorized the Quran, but you're actually protecting the Quran, subhanAllah. This is the thing. You're protecting it for future generations. But we also need to make them and ourselves protectors of our planet, because this is the planet that they will inherit. And this is the month of Ramadan, it is the month of Quran, so as the Quran is there as a complete source of guidance for us, the Quran and Sunnah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, O children of Adam, eat and drink, but waste not by excess, for Allah loveth not the wasters. This is in Surah Al-Araf, verse 31. In a hadith by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reported in Bukhari, if a Muslim plants a tree or sows a seed, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, it is regarded as a charitable gift. There are many actual evidences around the planet and our responsibilities towards it. And it's something that you can find out far more by just a simple Google search. But when I was doing search and research for the shows, because some of you may not know, but actually people research before they come on air, they just don't talk. We put in a lot of effort behind the scenes to prepare a good show, or try our best to prepare a good show. Hopefully, inshallah, is benefiting the people who are listening. I found a very interesting piece of information. This was on the EcoMina website. Mina, M-E-N, Eco, and then Mina, M-E-N-A. A whole list of sort of links, inshallah, will be put up towards the end of the show. But the EcoMina website, it mentioned this very interesting that I've never come across. And it said the Prophet ﷺ recognized that natural resources should not be overexploited or abused. In order to protect land, forests, and wildlife, the Prophet ﷺ created inviolable zones known as Haram and Hima, in which the resources were to be left untouched. Haram areas were drawn up around wells and water sources to protect the groundwater from overpumping. Hima applied to wildlife and forestry and designated an area of land where grazing and woodcutting was restricted, or where certain animal species such as camels were protected. And when I read that, I was automatically struck at how much similarity there was between this and the conservation of the rainforest, this new phenomenon, the conservation of the rainforest. And yet the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was giving us guidance upon this 1400 years ago. It's there. Now, this is something that is not, this is something that's spoken on a global scale. It's, being addressed the UN, and how faith-based organizations, including Muslims and Islamic organizations, can get involved on this. And perhaps if there's time towards the end of the show, I will come back to that specific topic. But I want to talk today and focus on how we practically can safeguard our planet, the steps that we can take to safeguard the planet on a day-to-day basis. So there's 4 things that I'm going to address in this show, inshallah, and I'd like for you to contribute in any way. If you've got ideas, the things that you're doing, don't feel that, I'm sure everybody else is doing that, so there's no need for me to say it. It's often the case that not everybody else is doing it, genuinely. So if you would like to contribute, and I really invite you to do so, remember that if there's something you contribute today and somebody went out and they acted upon it, then you will get barakah for it. So never make it seem like it's something small and insignificant. The number to call on, if you want to call in, is 0116 212 9324. That's 0116 212 9324. And the text in line number is 07450 925 084. That's 07450 925 084. And email is there as well, info@ramadan.fm. I'd just like to thank Sam John Paul, who's just joined us on Facebook. As I said, if you're enjoying the show, do feel free to share it on your Facebook feed. Inshallah, you might help somebody this month of Ramadan to firstly intend to help safeguard the planet, and secondly, learn ways in which they can help to safeguard the planet. So moving on, let's move on to how we can safeguard the planet. One of the ways that I'm going to be talking about is how we use less water. Secondly, about how we can reduce the energy we use. Thirdly, about what we're wasting and how we can reduce that. And fourthly, which is possibly many people haven't thought about, I might be wrong, so correct me if I am, being more aware about our impact on the planet and when we travel and when we go on holiday. So that's the fourth one. So the first one is about how we use less water, conserving water. Now, something came through on the WhatsApp. It was actually written by my brother, and he said something really beautiful. And it really struck me. He said, "The blessings of Allah are raining down upon us every minute of Ramadan." Now, I want you, if you're near a window, to look outside. I don't know whether it's still raining where you are. It looks like it kind of still raining where we are. And I want you to think about each one of those raindrops and put in mind that each one of those raindrops is a blessing from Allah. and it's a blessing from Allah, which is raining down upon you now during this month of Ramadan. That's phenomenal. When you stop and think about how phenomenal that mercy is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're just tuning in, I just want to remind everybody that you are tuned into the Ramadan special on EAVA FM. We are broadcasting on the airwaves on 102.5 FM. We're also broadcasting on the website www.ramadan.fm, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So lots of ways to listen in. And today's show is about safeguarding our planet and the importance of that, importance of making intention to safeguard our planet and how we can do it. And when we're talking about water, we have a beautiful example of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I think one of the things we have to bear in mind as well, and it's easy to forget, we live in England. You can look outside and it's raining. The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this deen was revealed in an area where rain was really, it was a blessing. It's not something that you could, it was something that they didn't get regularly, and it's still the case. Drought is a real thing. Not getting rain for days and days and days and days on end. So water is really precious. And I think in this country, sometimes we are quite complacent about that. That we've got so much water literally on tap. We have water on tap, clean drinking water on tap. And even that's a blessing. So next time you turn the tap on, I want you to say Alhamdulillah for that water, because that in itself is a blessing. But I want to talk about, as I said, safeguarding. How can we reduce this water usage that we're doing and the importance of it in terms of our environment? The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave us a very beautiful and logical approach to sustainable water use in the way in which he did wudu. And he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's reported that he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, said, "Do not waste, even if performing wudu on the bank of a fast-flowing large river." Meaning what? Meaning use less water if you can. Really do use less water. We do just turn the tap on full blast and make wudu. This is not, this is in effect the modern day version, if you think about it, of the flowing bank of river water. I'd just like to welcome Vlogs Bans, who just joined our show on the Facebook feed. Thank you for joining, and thank you everybody who is listening in. Really appreciate that and listening and giving some support to us while we're doing the show. So water, how do we reduce the water usage in our life? How do we follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? And really interesting things came up when I was researching the show, that actually if you went onto a vegetarian diet, and people think it's Ramadan, why are you talking about vegetarian diet in Ramadan? But it was fascinating to come across a statistic. 36% of water usage could be shrunk through a vegetarian diet. That's pretty phenomenal. But what was really interesting, the link has been put up there on how to save water and where I got these statistics from. What was really interesting, and I never thought this, maybe other people are well aware of this, but did you know that 22,454 pints of water were used to make your smartphone? I don't know how, but apparently 22,454 pints of water were used to make your smartphone. That would be quite interesting to find out which smartphones are made with less water. I don't know, a more sustainably developed smartphone. Now, here's a question for you. Those of you who are tuned in, if you want to text in and join in, just a question to see what people think or what they perhaps already know. Here's a challenge. Do you think using a dishwasher uses less water than washing up by hand? Anybody know? Just want to welcome Samir Sheikh, who's just joined us on the Facebook feed. And this is the question, if you do dishwashers, and you can just very quickly type in the answer, do dishwashers use less water than washing up by hand? If you know the answer, message us in or just drop us a message on the Facebook. So that's coming up in a bit. So one of the ways, very, very quick ways, and this is something we can definitely help save water by and teach our kids this. Did you know that you could save 6 liters of water a minute by turning off the tap when you brush your teeth? 6 liters of water a minute by turning off the tap while brushing your teeth. So if you probably already are doing this, but if you're not doing it, very easy thing to do. And the taps now have changed. They're not all the knob taps. They're like flick on, flick off ones. They probably have a particular term that I'm not aware of. It's very easy to use less water. Just flick it on, flick it off, rather than leaving it just like free flowing. 6 liters of water a minute. So that's something when your kids come and you're helping them brush the teeth in the evening, to remind them of that and think about that yourself as well, inshallah. Boil what you need. This is one of those things that it's very easy to just fill up your kettle whether you're using it to cook or whether you're using it to a cup of tea or for whatever reason, filling up the kettle. Only fill up the kettle the amount that you're actually going to use. It reduces, not only does it save in terms of reducing the amount of water you're using, but it also reduces the amount of energy you use. And that's something we'll come on to a bit later on, inshallah, in the show. But it reduces the amount of energy used, which is pretty, it's very, something you don't think about. Is a very small measure in which you can make a change. Spend less time in the shower. It's every minute you spend in a shower, it's particularly the power shower, uses 17 liters of water. We were sent out these little packs, I remember, and they had these little egg timers for 5-minute showers. So the kids at one point were very, very keen to sort of use these and just make sure that they were having really quick showers. And that's a really good way. It said when I was reading about such a smartphone on timer, but you could use the egg timer. It would be quite nice. And we also do that with the brushing the teeth, making sure they're brushing the teeth for 2 minutes. They hand them out often in schools. You probably have one of them at home already. And it's just a good way of making sure they're using less water. And of course, not just less water, less gas and less electricity, depending on how your water is heated. Washing clothes. I mean, laundry. Don't even get me started about laundry. That seems to be never ending for most of us. But by washing, putting lots, not half lots on, by reducing the temperature at which you wash, you can save a lot of energy. Low flush toilets. Now, many of you might already have this, but not actually realize the function of it. You might go to a toilet and you see that it's got 2 buttons at the top. And the 2 buttons, if you use the smaller one, you're filling the smaller button, that's a half flush. It doesn't use the full amount of water which is in the toilet to flush away things. So it reduces the amount of water. And then you have the full flush, which is the 2. If you do have that at home, just try and get in the habit of using the smaller one when there's not that much to flush away. Steaming vegetables is an interesting one because, it's particularly when you're boiling things, using the right amount of boiled things and reusing that water as well. So if you are boiling your vegetables, use that water again to perhaps boil the pasta. So don't just throw it away. Or at the very least, just go put it out in the plants. The plants can get some extra nutrition. Yes, thank you, Nashmi Muhammad has just written very beautifully. Water is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we should feel blessed. We absolutely should, and we should take a moment actually to think about that blessing. Whether we're making wudu, whether we're just turning on the tap, to fill up the kettle even, remembering how much of a blessing it is. When living in the UK, we really are blessed with clean drinking water on tap. Yasin Patel, thank you very much for joining our show as well. On Facebook, brilliant. I'm glad to see all everybody's. And if you are listening, you're enjoying it. If you want to share this show, it's very easily done on Facebook. It's easily done on WhatsApp even. You can just copy paste the website link and just get it out there, or just very easily 102.5 FM Ramadan special on EAVA FM. Just send it out. Inshallah, get people tuning in. So there's a lot of ways in which we can reduce the amount of water that we're using. And one other trick, at the moment it's raining, so we're probably not thinking about our gardens, and who wants to do gardening in Ramadan? It's quite a hefty task. That said, post Ramadan, inshallah, we don't get the heat wave like we had last year, but just thinking about that and how much water we use in the garden, small little tricks. One trick that I came across, somebody recommended once, is to use ice cubes. And by popping ice cubes in your plants, especially hanging baskets, it works really well for those. Rather than gushing in the water and half the water leaves the basket or drowns the plant, ice cubes are a very good way for you to introduce water to plants. And plants are important. I'm not going to go into global warming and greenhouse effect and why plants are important. It's a whole show probably in its own right. But plants are important. So it's important to keep them alive, but also at the same time thinking about how much water we use. And something very beautiful came up when I was looking into this. And let's stop and think about the animals and the plants. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted this planet to us and entrusted the welfare of these animals and plants to us as well. And to think about the plants is one thing, to make sure they're getting watered, but also animals. In a heat wave, if we do have a heat wave this summer, to leave some water out, a little container, a little casserole dish for birds to come and drink from. So they're not parched, that they have what they need as well. And it reminded me of, probably many of you have seen this image do the rounds of how the Ottomans used to carve out cobblestones. So the cobblestones would collect water for the birds to come and drink from. So we don't need cobblestones here. We can also catch rainwater. We're very fortunate to get a lot of rainwater in the UK. And you can get rainwater butts. These are like these big, not buckets, but they're just like these big containers which collect the rainwater, which you can then use in your garden. Now, I said a challenge. Nobody's answered it, but I will go on to that now. Dishwashers, do you think they use less water or more water than washing up? In fact, a dishwasher can use a lot less water than you doing the washing up. And it's quite interesting that as long as you don't wash all your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher, because that would just be like doubling up the amount of water that you're using. So dishwashers actually use less water than washing up. I don't know whether you knew that, but perhaps you learned something new today, inshallah. Now, the next part of what I want to talk about, well, before I go on to that, of those points that we just skimmed through, inshallah, I hope that you can take that away and think about and intend to, like just a very small thing, like with your children today, intend to turn off the tap between when you're brushing your teeth. So that would be a really good way of doing that. And we are going to be going on after the break, which will be coming up shortly, to talk about what we waste and how we can save ourselves from wasting things. But during the break, I'd like you to do this little challenge. And the challenge is to walk around the house and think about how much energy you use in the house and how you could reduce the energy. For example, having lights turned off in rooms that are not being used. If you've got electrical equipment which is on standby, often we're just so plugged in these days, literally, that most things are on standby. If it doesn't need to be on standby, turn it off. I'm not talking about things plugged into the wall, like kettles and so forth, the switches on. That's not going to make a difference. But in terms of TVs and TVs and also the boxes and Sky boxes, Virgin boxes, all those kind of things. Thermostat, just that turning down your thermostat. If there's hardly anyone in the house, maybe just heat one room. Most radiators come with those little thermostats, individual ones. So if you're not using half the house, it takes a moment. Just go around turning them down. Inshallah, that will reduce your energy usage. Keeping doors closed is a great way to keep the heating, rooms warm. At the moment, it's all about keeping the rooms warm. So keeping the doors closed is a very good way of saving energy. Look at your lights. Are they energy saving bulbs? Because that's another way in which you can save energy. Draft excluders, excuse me. Draft excluders are also a really good way of keeping in the warmth. If you just reduce the amount of draft, the cold air coming in, you can keep things warmer. And a final point on, if you're looking at your phone or you're listening on your phone even possibly, closing down apps, putting your phone into power save, reducing the brightness. These are all ways in which you can reduce the amount you'll charge your phone, because we've got a lot of devices to charge these days. and every little bit helps. And if you do that with the right intention, do it with the intention that you are trying to make less of a footprint on the planet and to safeguard the planet. And this beautiful planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted us up with. Just make it with that intention in this month of Ramadan. And I pray that that intention is rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do stay tuned. I will be back, and hopefully you will also be back listening after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You are tuned in to the Ramadan FM special with EAVA FM. We are broadcasting on the airwaves on 102.5 FM, and we are also online on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on the website www.ramadan.fm. You are welcome to join us in the show. We are talking about, or rather, I'm talking about, and hopefully you're benefiting, inshallah, about safeguarding our planet as part of my lifestyle show here on Ramadan FM. So the contact numbers are 0116 212 9324. That's 0116 212 9324. And the texting line 07450 925 084. 07450925084. Now, just a quick recap if you are just joining us after the break. Today's show, I've been talking about safeguarding our planet and how if there's one thing that you could do is at the very least make intention to safeguard the planet in this month of Ramadan. And inshallah, Allah will reward you for that intention. And I gave you all a challenge for the break. And I don't know who's done the challenge, but I hope some of you did, inshallah. And if not, just do this when the kids come home from madrasa, from school today. If you're a parent, walk around the house with them and talk to them about how they can save energy usage in the house. Make them aware of their responsibility towards their planet, the planet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted upon all of us. And there's no better time I can think than the month of Ramadan to explain this to them, because inshallah they too will make that intention to safeguard their planet, and that intention by the will of Allah will be rewarded at least tenfold, inshallah 700-fold, and they will become the hufad, the protectors of their own planet, of this inheritance that we will give them. So quickly, talking about energy usage, looking at making sure lights are turned off, or as more colloquially said in Leicester, off the light, on the light. If it's on or off, whichever way you want to say it, make sure you're turning things off when they're not being used. Making sure electrical equipment, which is being left on standby. Honestly, I know most of us do not turn the TV or the boxes on during the day. Turn them off, take them, just switch them off. Save that bit of energy. Turning down thermostats. And I'm going to say something, we love, we're very, very used to our central heating. But my father, bless him, he taught us, don't just turn the heating on. And it might mean for the fact that it saves money. I'll admit, most of us probably do these things because they save money, save on the energy bill. But actually, just putting on a cardigan and keeping warm by wearing layers. Nazmin Lila, thank you for joining our show and thank you for the kind comments. Jazakallah khair. It's great to know people listening rather than speaking to dead airwaves. It makes a huge difference, believe me. So just putting an extra layer on, learning that putting on an extra layer of clothing is a way to keep warm. It is a good skill to raise our children with and to have ourselves. I mean, I have to admit, not plugging this company, but I do love Uniqlo. Uniqlo are great for layering up. I don't make any money out of plugging them, but anything which, wear layers, thermal layers underneath. It might not be fashionable to do so, but it's going to help reduce your energy usage. And inshallah, if you intended to do it for the purpose of safeguarding the planet to reduce your energy usage, subhanAllah, imagine that's a reward of safeguarding the planet. It's pretty phenomenal if you put it in that perspective. Check you've got energy saving bulbs, teaching the kids to close the door when the heating is on, putting in draft excluders, insulate. There's lots of other things like loft insulation and so forth. There are so many different ways. And there's a lot of good information on the Energy Saving Trust's website. Hopefully we'll get that link put up on the Facebook as well, so you can have a quick read about that, and also thinking about how you're using your phone, reducing your energy usage on your phone. So I'm going to move on to another aspect of safeguarding our planet, and that's waste. And I can think no better way to start that particular segment of the show, starting with an ayah from the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O children of Adam, eat and drink, but not waste by excess. For Allah loveth not the wasters. And this is Surah Al-Araf, verse 31. There's so much that comes to mind, and so much that probably comes to your mind when we're talking about waste. I'd just like to say Assalamu alaikum to Najib Khan, who's just joined us on the Facebook, and Assalamu alaikum to anyone who's just joined us, whether you're joining us on 102.5 FM or through the website or whichever way you're listening in. Thank you for joining the show, inshallah. And I pray it's benefit for you and a benefit for me and a benefit for whoever goes on to learn about what we've talked about in the show today. So I want you to now do something. I want you to close your eyes and imagine a pile of rubbish, a pile of waste, a pile of plastic, and I want you to imagine it growing and growing and growing. This is what we're going to give to our children. It's basically a massive, big rubbish tip if we don't do something about it. And I want you to put that image in your head. Because if you put that image in your head, and alhamdulillah, even you can't put that image in your head, just Google landfill and see the pictures. And we are very fortunate that it's out of sight, out of mind. For us here in the UK, we don't see the landfill sites. But in other places like Bombay and so forth, you can see these landfill sites on the edge of the cities. I remember growing up in Mombasa, there was no, in those days, I didn't grow up in Mombasa. I used to go and visit a family out there, and they used to have these rubbish tips, not rubbish, piles of rubbish. There's no rubbish collection. We take for granted something. We take for granted the bin men come, collect our rubbish, and it goes away. We don't think about where it goes away. And I had this conversation with some elderly lady in the community when they first introduced recycling in Highfields. And she's like, well, what happens to this rubbish? I said, I don't know. I don't know. She goes, what's the green box about? She's asking me. And I realized that conversation had to start about actually going back to what happens to that rubbish. Because I don't know. Once we threw it away, it goes somewhere. Where does it go? I'd just like to welcome Imran Didat, who's just joined the show on Facebook, listening on Facebook. And everyone else, Jazakallah for your support and listening in today. So where does it go? It goes to these landfills. And if you've not seen a picture, have a look, because it's pretty horrendous. It is a massive rubbish tip of things that just are not going to biodegrade. Biodegrade meaning it's like fall down, and really trying to simplify it, small particles and go back into the earth. That's not happening. So when your rubbish gets collected, it goes off to landfills. And unfortunately, we are making our planet into a big rubbish tip if we don't do something about it. And this is what our children are going to inherit, and they are not going to thank us for it. And we will have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. It's something we kind of forget. We think about we're going to only have to answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our prayer and our salah and reading Quran and being good to our parents and being kind to our youngest. But we're also going to have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what we did. How did we safeguard this planet that has been entrusted to us? And there's a huge amount of really, really good information on Leicester's Council's website actually about this. You can also order your orange bags if you didn't know online. In case you write down those little sticker things and you don't get them, you can still order them online. And it's a very, very quick strategy to sort of keep in mind when you're thinking about waste. And it's called the 3 R's. And your kids have probably learned it in school and you probably know about it already. And the 3 R's are reduce, reuse, and then recycle. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. So a lot of what we could be doing is firstly reducing the amount of waste. And I think in many respects, we are very, very much behind as a society here in the UK on that front. A few years back when we went to Morocco, we went to one of the supermarkets there. And in the supermarket, it was quite interesting because I was walking around thinking, oh, how do I buy the vegetables? Nothing's packaged up in plastic. Really bizarre. What do I do? And I saw other people, watched other people are doing, because my Arabic and my French are not really that good to start asking people what I'm supposed to do. And then you do a bit of sign language. You figure out that actually you have to put things in paper bags. Then you go and weigh how much fruit is there. And then that gives you a price for that. And that's what you'll then take to the till. And interestingly, the same was true for the pasta, for the rice, for all the dried foods, and even the masalas, the spices. You could just buy small amounts, what you needed, and that would be weighed, and you'd pay for that. And there was no plastic around everything. There's no plastic around it. And it's phenomenal. And I think sometimes we talk about being the developed country, yet the developing countries are so much more ahead in terms of their thinking when it comes to sustainability and it comes to the environment than we are. Even Kenya has now got a ban on plastic. And I remember a couple of years ago when this came into effect, and it was the Eid al-Adha, and speaking to one of my cousin's daughters, and she was like, well, actually, we've now suddenly having to think about how we're going to go around giving the qurbani meat, because we used to just throw it in plastic bags, but we can't do that anymore. And we're now wrapping them in banana leaves. SubhanAllah. So it's such such a small thing. You want to think about the effects of taking plastic out of your lives. Consciously try to take plastic out of your lives. And why do you want to be? I mean, people say, well, why? What's the big deal with plastic? And there's a lot of talk about plastic pollution. And, you know, if anybody you like watch the Planet programs by David Attenborough, he covered a lot of this and how our plastic is polluting the oceans and in turn the wildlife. According to the Ocean Conservancy, plastic has been found in more than 60% of all seabirds and 100% of sea turtle species. Ingesting plastic is life-threatening on wildlife, and this plastic eventually ends up being digested by humans. Brits who consume fish are at risk of consuming 11,000 fragments of plastic a year, according to a recent Belgian study. That was an article in The Independent. 11,000 of plastic when you're eating fish is quite shocking, really. Just a reminder, if you're tuning in, this is the Ramadan special on EAVA FM 102.5 FM. And thank you for joining us on the show. And talking about safeguarding the planet today, and how if there's one thing that we can do today is to make that intention during the month of Ramadan to do something about safeguarding the planet, which is an amana, an entrustment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So plastic, reducing the amount of plastic. Now I have a challenge for all of these takeaway shops along Evington Road today. If you're listening, any of you, think please carefully about how you are. I mean, at the very least, please introduce recycling bins in your shops at the very least. I noticed some of the takeaway shops are now using cardboard as opposed to polystyrene. Fantastic. But not so fantastic if all that cardboard is going into the dustbin. So please try and think. It was very, I mean, I'm not an expert here. That said, I grew up in Milton Keynes. In Milton Keynes, we were recycling like 30 odd years ago. So we grew up with this, alhamdulillah. But one of the things you could do, have a bin for food waste, have a bin for your cardboard waste. If you're introducing cardboard, that's a great step. Even better would be to obviously use recycled cardboard for your manufacturing of your products, your packaging, but have ways in which people can actively recycle their waste when they come to shop. That's a challenge I'm putting out there. And also, if you're listening and you're going to go to takeaway shop today or tomorrow or after iftar, obviously, if you're going to go, ask them. Please ask them, what are you doing for the environment? Why don't you have a recycle? Hold them to account, because unless people start holding them to account, I mean, this is an investment. Don't get me wrong. Thinking about your sustainability, thinking about how you're going to safeguard the planet. As a business, it's an investment. But businesses and how we run our businesses should be according to the ethics and the morals of Islam as well. It's not just something that we do in our personal life. Islam extends to how we do tijara, how we do trade. We saw this with the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So don't just think about it, go out and hold them to account. Hold these businesses to account. Why don't you have a recycling bin? You know, I've been on holiday, and some of the places we've been on holiday, they've had recycling bins. So you can recycle what you're using there on holiday and all-inclusive resorts. They're costing on. So we need the challenges. Go out. If you're going to go out, go ask them, why don't you have a recycling bin? And if you are listening and you are a business running a takeaway, any business, I want you, inshallah, to stop and think about what you're doing in terms of your sustainability, in terms of how you're safeguarding the environment with your business, and take that forward post Ramadan. But intend to be more environmentally friendly this Ramadan. So inshallah, you get the reward for it. So that's one of the ways of firstly reducing, reusing, trying to reuse things. If you've been to Africa or India or any of these places, a lot of people, they reuse everything. Here we're growing up in a culture now that, oh well, if it's broken, just throw it away. That's We are becoming a throwaway society. So one of the things I would say is, if it's broken, can it be fixed? Ask this question, and get your children asking this question, because a lot of times things can be fixed. You can go out. There are shops even along Evington Road who will fix your suitcase if it's broken, or fix your bag, or even a pencil case got broken and I took it down the road to a particular shop on Evington Road and they fixed it. So there's lots of opportunities to fix things if they're broken, not just throw them away. So that's a way in which you can help to reuse things. So reusing and recycling. Recycling, we're fortunate in Leicester, and depending on which part of Leicester, I know there are different sort of recycling procedures, but we have the orange bag in this part of Leicester. There's lots of information on Leicester Government's Leicester Council websites about this. Do have a read up. And there's also a whole section about reusable nappies. So if you are a parent who just started parenting, you've got an infant rather, who's still in nappies, have a think about it. It's not for everybody, but nappies are a huge impact on landfills, actually. Absolutely phenomenal, huge impact on landfills. It's something that can't biodegrade. And when I say biodegrade, sort of go back into the soil in a healthy way. It's like plastic in that respect. So do have a think about that. The other thing as well, which is quite interesting, is we were talking about plastic earlier and how we can reduce plastic, and how it's environmentally damaging. And of course, we have to remember that we live in an ecosystem, and the ecosystem is something which needs to be really carefully balanced. Allah SWT keeps everything in perfect check and balance for us, but we have to be responsible for that ecosystem as well. And changing that balance can cause so many knock-on effects, whether it's if we're cutting down trees in the rainforest, or whether it's to do with how we are impacting the environment in terms of the fuel that we're using, the fossil fuels that are being burned. There are so many different ways. I think I've only got 5 minutes left for the show, so I'm going to go on to something which is interesting. One other thing about waste, and I want you to think about waste in terms of trees. Trees are really, really important for our planet. They breathe out. I say breathe out. They don't breathe in the same way as us. I realize that. But they emit, maybe is the better word, carbon. They emit oxygen. We as human beings require oxygen to live. There's a balance. Trees are important. And if there's one thing that you can do today, inshallah, whether you're at a personal level, whether with your children, or whether if you're working in a school or in a business, is think about the paper that you use. A lot of workplaces now have a little message on the end of the emails I've noticed, which says, do you really need to print this? Okay, that's one way. But there's other ways. So for example, when you get the paper, and sadly, I'm not sure whether this is the case with all schools, but I do get a lot of paper coming through from the school. And it's not just the spelling sheets, it's all the other things. And yes, the children might recycle the paper by making paper aeroplanes. But after they've made the paper aeroplanes, get them to put in the recycle bin. At home, alhamdulillah, we have the recycle bin as a separate bin, and we have the waste bin as a separate thing. And one of the things is, if you've got paper, it needs to go and recycle. Teaching our children to do that. Thanks, Rahima, for joining us. Do mention about recycling oil at the curbside. Do not pour oil down the drain. That is a really good one. Oil really clogs up the drains. I think we tend to not really think about what we're pouring down the drain. That's another thing entirely as well. And one of the other things around that, just coming to mind, Rahima, is also about the chemicals that we use in cleaning and how those infect the environment by going into our water system. So there's that inshallah I will try and come back to that on a future show in a bit more depth. But certainly in this month of Ramadan, when I know a lot of people do a lot of frying, frying the samosas, frying the spring rolls, frying whatever's being fried, don't throw the oil down the drain. This is really, really important. It does plug the drain and the water drainage system, amongst other things. So really, the show has really like zoomed past, so won't be able to cover absolutely everything. But one other thing I would say during the month of this month of Ramadan, and a lot of people I know go out to eat along Evington Road and so forth, and don't litter the street, please. Please don't litter the street. At the very least, put the rubbish in the bin. But more than that, I have to admit, when I go out with the kids, if they've got plastic with them, we take it home and it goes in the recycle bin. So consciously think about, make intention that if you make intention that by throwing something in the recycling, that you're doing it for safeguarding the planet. Remember, going back to that hadith, that very first question, you all know, I'm sure, heard it many times before, but I think I'll end on that hadith of Rasulullah. His actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what was intended. Whoever migrates with the intention for Allah and His Messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And whoever migrates for worldly gain or to marry a woman, then his migration will be for the sake of whatever he migrated for. And this is a hadith reported in Bukhari and Muslim. So just to wrap up this show now, and to say, think about your intention towards safeguarding the planet. Make an intention this month of Ramadan. Invite your children, talk to your children about how they can make intention this month of Ramadan on how to safeguard the planet. It is, after all, going to be their inheritance. And we discuss quite a few little ways in which you could do that. And there's a multitude of ways. And inshallah, I hope the producer can put up a link on the Facebook. There are 50 ways to help save the planet. It was actually phenomenal. 50 ways. I'm not going to read out 50 ways on air, but inshallah we'll put that link up. Finally, yes, Rahima, something about the impact of the toilet fresh pod stick on freshener and the detrimental effect on marine life. And yes, you're right. There's so many things that we don't actually realize can affect the planet. And it is about taking time to read as well. Read and educate ourselves. And even within that, educating ourselves and making intention to be better citizens of this planet, better in terms of the creation and our relationship with the creation of Allah on this planet, inshallah, we will be rewarded for that. So do, inshallah, join us tomorrow on the Lifestyle Show. Take care and thanks for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum.